It's time for the moment you've been waiting for. Duh.
Okay, no SpongeBob guy, no, get out of here. Sorry about that, I don't know how he got on here. So, this is a video I have been wanting to do for a few years now, I'm not kidding. But, it kept getting forgotten until recently, it came up in my mind again. So honestly, I don't have a lot to say other than this video will be my top 10 favorite Bluey episodes of all time. This was originally going to be 20, but believe it or not, this actually got extended to 30. There are so many fucking good episodes of this series, but I had to limit this down just to 10. Now, I want to say a couple things before we get onto the list. One, like usual, this is just simply my own personal opinion. If you have a different opinion on any of these episodes, or even your own top 10 list, that's perfectly fine. 2, I will give out some honorable and one dishonorable mention before I get to my number 1. And 3, I'm not going to actually do any fancy transitions. I'll list the number and then I'll talk, so yeah, don't expect any fancy video transitions like I do for my Death Battle videos. So I think that's it. People just want to get onto the list now, and I actually want to as well. So without further ado, let's get on to my top 10 favorite Bluey episodes of all time. Starting off with, obviously, number 10. For the most part, this list wasn't actually that hard to organize in terms of my favorite episodes, but some placements had to be changed. In fact, this specific entry was originally in my top 3, but I had to drop it all the way down here because I haven't seen the full episode that much outside of clips online that get recommended to me. So this may seem as a bit of a surprise to some people, but my number 10 is Baby Race. So like I mentioned, this was originally in my top 3. It's definitely a great episode, but I just haven't seen the full episode that much. Also, there is another problem with this episode that actually prevents it from ranking any higher. So, you know the scene I made that video about where Chris... You know what? Link in the description. I'm not talking about that again. But that's actually the only bad part of the episode. The emotional moments do hit me, but not enough to make me cry or anything, but enough to make me feel appreciated about this episode and some of its characters. Like, the scene where Bella just talks to Chili. Do I even need to say anything on how great that is? Overall, I actually don't have anything else to add for this episode, but you all should know how good at least this episode is. Baby Bluey is just an absolute sweetheart. I love her. Yeah, sorry if I didn't have a lot to talk about with this one, but that's really all I have to say about this one. So let's head on over to number 9. This entry was originally a spot lower, but now it actually gets switched around, which I think is pretty cool. So number 9 is Burger Shop. If I had to sum up my review for this decently quickly, it's funny, I like the setup, and I like how Bandit doesn't have to follow the rules of a book. Well, a parenting book, but you get the idea. And I just love how well he goes along with it. There, done, number 8. No. Did you really think I would actually leave you hanging there? No, okay, I will at least talk about this for a minute. Something random to point out, what makes this episode decently relatable is that burgers are my actual favorite food. That alone can make me like the premise of what the girls are playing in this episode, but the episode just scores high for its overall presentation. Again, it's funny, I love the premise. Okay, I'm genuinely running out of things to say for this episode, because also, I haven't seen this in quite some time, but I know what the plot is and everything. The ending was nice. Okay, no, for real, let's move on to number 8. I'm sorry if I didn't have a lot to talk about with this one. I wasn't sure if this episode should be lower or even completely off of my list and into my top 20, but I remember how absolutely funny this episode is, so you know what? For me loving this one quite a lot, Dunny deserves to be in 8th place. Yeah, like I mentioned, this episode is legitimately funny, and it even came up with the word Dunny, which is, I guess, a neat way to say bathroom. The most well-known part of the episode to me is the 4 in the bed scene. I just find that genuinely admirable. Again, I'm sorry I don't have a lot more to say. This episode doesn't really have a plot other than them being in bed for the entire episode, and stuff happens. Yeah, that's it. No, I'm not kidding. Go watch the episode and you'll know why I don't really have a lot to talk about. The episode speaks for itself. So, again, I do apologize for not having a lot to talk about. So, let's head on over to number 7. When I was actually doing this list in preparation for this video, a few placements had to be changed. Number 3 on this list did belong to Baby Race before I found another episode that I loved. And this spot was originally going to go to Flat Pack, but while I think that episode is good, I don't think it's top 10 best material. Don't get me wrong though, it would be top 20 best material though. So what's the replacement for that episode in number 7? That actually goes, believe it or not, to The Decider. I actually wanted this episode on the list. And I'm genuinely happy about that. Even though this episode consists of Bandit, Pat, Chucky, Lucky, Bluey, and Bingo watching a soccer game while Chanel supports the blue team, I overall had a decent amount of fun checking this episode out. Now if anyone doesn't know, I'm not exactly a soccer guy compared to baseball, basketball, or tennis. But honestly, I didn't really care, because this episode was enjoyable enough on its own. By the way, I kind of don't really have a favorite team for this episode, whether it be the Maroons or the Blues. I honestly don't care which one. In fact, I actually had a shirt design for my OC, where one side would be the Maroons and one side would be the Blues that's actually a shirt. Since I didn't care which team to support, I was just happy to see this episode in general. This episode can be somewhat inspiring in a way, like the shirt design I just mentioned, but it could also just be the concept behind all this. Now, this is the first time so far I'm mentioning a parenting moment in an episode, but I love how Pat and Chanel do encourage Chucky to pick whichever team he wants to support, and they wouldn't mind it. That's definitely a good lesson that I don't think a fair amount of shows today would even teach. Especially when Pat was actually supporting the Maroons and Chanel was supporting the Blues. That's saying a lot since the two of them were supporting different teams, but since they could come down and tell Chucky that's fine with whatever team Chucky wanted to pick, they would actually support it, and I just love that. Even though this is mainly the healers and the retrievers watching a soccer game for about 90% of the episode, I do overall love this very much. Again, I'm not a sports fanatic dedicated to only sports. I do like other stuff too. But I don't really think of actual soccer while watching this episode. I just think that this could be a fun idea, or a fun episode in general to check out. Overall, that's my opinion about The Decider, and I'm actually glad it's in my top 10. So now, let's head on over to number 6. What needs to be said about the iconic episode, Dance Mode? By the way, can we please get a real yes or no button? I would buy that. I'm not really gonna have a lot to talk about with this one, but it's fun. I like how Busker plays that, whatever that is. The ending scene is actually kind of phenomenal. I'm mentioning those scenes in particular because, believe it or not, I had to pause this recording and nearly 3 minutes in, I legit don't know what else to talk about. Oh yeah, Chili giving those big eyes while trying to convince Bingo to use one of her dance modes on Bandit, like... Aw, how could I say no to you? Oh yeah, Bandit buying one of Bingo's last dance modes, that wasn't really fair, but I'm not complaining. It's not a perfect scenario, I'm not complaining, it's just something to point out. Okay, now I don't really know what else to talk about, so I apologize if this segment seemed relatively shorter compared to the previous few, but again, I don't know what else to mention. So believe it or not, we're already entering the top 5, so let's head on over to number 5. This episode has been this high up for the longest time since I actually first made this list. And even though I haven't seen this in a while, Duck Cake is a great episode. I have seen Binging with Babish even make this, which I'm genuinely surprised he actually got out of his way to make it. By the way, I actually don't watch full videos of Binging with Babish because I don't really care. I prefer cooking with Fred. I don't know, I'm just pointing that out. So anyway, how's the actual episode? Definitely great. Although the emotional scene when Bandit accidentally messes up, like, that just hits me. Seeing him just sad like that, it just makes me want to go over and hug him. What makes this scene immediately heartwarming right after Bluey checks in on her dad is her being thoughtful and cleaning up the mess that he accidentally made. Plus her giving him the idea to form the head with whatever cake they had left over. Yeah, I know I'm talking about the ending first, but I just felt like bringing it up. This even does encourage Bluey to clean up the other messes that she actually made. Also, wait, what? They don't like the clown cake that Chili made that one time? Come on, I'm sure it wasn't that bad. Overall, I don't have a ton to talk about with this that I haven't mentioned already because for the majority of the episode, it's Bandit trying to make it form the cake and Bluey pretty much doing whatever until she actually wants to clean up the messes that she actually did make at the end of the episode. So yeah, don't have a lot more to say, so let's head on over to number 4. This episode I've been loving a lot more recently than around the time it came out, and you know what? Yeah, it deserves 4th place, since this is actually my favorite Mort episode. Why do I bring that up? Well, I'm talking about phones. This episode is already relatable right off the bat because I'm on my phone 24/7. Yeah, anyway. I love how Mort tries to use technology, but he's just not really used to it. It's fine if you're not to, honestly. This episode's plot on paper doesn't have a ton for me to talk about, since it's just Mort trying to adjust to technology by the game that Bluey and Bingo made, but also trying his best to get used to it. And you'd be correct, but I love everything this episode throws at me. First off, it's got Mort, and I love him as my own dad. Seeing him in this episode already gets my attention. And again, him trying to adjust to technology, not really, but you get the idea. For Bluey Bingo's game, it's actually neat to actually see him like this, and sure, call him a boomer if you want since he's not used to technology. But hey, it's fine. But when the second half of the episode actually kicks in, mainly trying to deal with the croc, I love how the three of them literally take the croc and throw it over Pat's fence. That's just funny right there. Sure, this episode may be simple, but to me at least, I just love it. Overall, I'm very happy this episode made it to the list. Now, we're heading into the top 3, starting off with, well, number 3. This episode was a spot or 2 lower, but now it's actually gained a spot higher. And this is actually my favorite water-themed episode of the series. Anyone want to take a guess on what it is? Go ahead, pause the video and take a guess. Oh, what'd you say? The beach? Nope, you're wrong. What'd you say? The pool? You're close. Swim school? Correct. Swim School for the longest time has always been my favorite water-themed episode. I love this so much. The plot is simple. Bingo, Chili, and Bandit trying to get into Big Fish, but they have to deal with Little Fish first. The Little Fish teacher, Karen, played by Bluey, mind you, is actually the nice one, but when they get to Margaret and Big Fish, she's not as nice as Karen. Yeah, I know this episode's premise is just the healers swimming around for nearly 10 minutes, but honestly, I don't mind at all. I'm a sea lover myself, and I love the ocean, and seeing a pool like this, that already draws my attention. Sometimes, though, this episode does actually come to my mind whenever I think of water. Yeah, oh, wait, hang on. I was right about to say I don't have a lot to say, but there is something genuinely funny I do want to mention. Bandit peeing in the pool twice in the ending of the episode, that's just funny right there. Okay, for real, I don't have a lot more to say. Alright, now we're on to second place. This episode for the longest time was originally my number 1, but until I actually decided what my number 1 was, this ever since, well, okay, let me reiterate. Up until I would say maybe late 2022 or early 2023, this episode was originally my number 1 until I decided what my number 1 is. So what's that episode, all of you may be wondering? Well, my second favorite episode as well as the runner-up is Sticky Gecko. This episode has a lot of shenanigans, but I don't mind that, honestly. In fact, that's what makes it funnier. It's Bluey and Bingo trying to get ready for a playdate with Judo. However, multiple things happen causing them to be pretty late. And Chili gets triggered, to put it lightly, near the end of the episode. This episode seems pretty chaotic, right? Well, yes, but the final few minutes, I just have one word to say. Phenomenal. The scene where Chili just talks to Bluey. I love literally everything that the two of them exchange. Honestly, I don't have a lot more to say. Again, check out the episode and you'll know why I love it so much. I kind of wanted to talk about this episode a bit more, but I really don't know what else to mention, so let's move on to my absolute favorite episode. Let's head over to number 1. For nearly the entire time I've been in love with the show, this episode has always been my favorite episode. I know this episode was banned, but to be honest with you, I found a few ways to actually check out this episode even after it got banned. And for any longtime viewers on my channel, you may notice this is the episode I've talked about before. I tried to do a 2-part video review. I mentioned it in my Pat Steed's Good to Evil video. So without further ado, for any new viewers or longtime viewers that haven't really been keeping up with my channel, what is my absolute favorite Bluey episode of all time? This may be a bit shocking, but Dad Baby is my favorite episode of the show. I honestly don't know why, but I love everything about this episode. Oh yeah, right, I forgot to mention my honorable and dishonorable mentions, so I'm just gonna do them very quickly. For my honorable mentions, honestly, the entire series could be my honorable mention. And for my dishonorable mentions, they're Perfect and The Sign. I said I only have one, but I remembered Perfect, and yeah, I'm not gonna talk about them anymore. Anyway, back to Dad Baby. What do I love about this episode that everyone's gonna wonder? Well, it's its premise to its idea to the final few minutes. Yeah, like, I know it's just Bandit portraying a pregnant woman for the entire episode, but it just works for me. Well, the episode was already good enough, but until the part where Pat comes in, that's when it gets funnier and even better. I love how Pat takes the quote-unquote birth pretty seriously. What makes Pat even more admirable here is that he'd rather have missed out on a cricket game he's been looking forward to watching than to actually help out his friend. And even though it's Bluey in the end that does help Bingo get out, if that's fine with me saying it, sure, he at least tried though. And this episode makes me know about the actual song Hey True Blue, and I actually love that song, even though I barely listen to it. So yeah, like I mentioned, I love every single thing about this episode, from its idea to its execution, just everything. I love it so much. You know what? Since this episode is actually available on YouTube, if anyone is interested in checking it out, I'll leave a link also for this in the description. And that was the list. Overall, I'm glad I finally got this video out, and I don't really have a ton more to say about my outro. So yeah, I guess that's about it. I'm Con Astro Healer. I'll see y'all later with whatever we do next time, and that'll be all for now.